Hello, my name is Latera Daniels, and for my topic, I chose identity development during the adolescent stage. To start off, I wanted to say that identity development is established during the time of adolescence. And during this time period, adolescents may experience a fluctuation in self esteem, aggression, psychological development, peer pressure, along with many other things. It can actually be further examined by looking at Erikson's stage of identity versus confusion. So, it is important to note that many adolescents find it very challenging in determining who they are and what they actually want in life. When teenagers start to develop their identity, there's usually a change in behavior and their conduct. So during this stage, people develop an approach towards the society's expectations that can lead or can be labeled as resistive. So adolescents, they try on different faces and different identities and different perceptions until they find one that they feel is comfortable or aligns with who they would like to be in life. And so this is a stage where it is mostly trial and error, and not very many adolescents know who they want to be right away. And this is the phenomenon that this whole presentation is about because there are so many factors that can contribute to developing an identity. In one of the research articles I studied, it focused on peer influence. It stated that scholars have emphasized that peers play a key role in shaping development in childhood and adolescence. Peers have the ability to influence each other's level of racial identity. It is plausible that all youth in this context may be more likely to fit in by adopting a perspective of those around them. So, simply by being around a group of people, adolescents are able to take on pieces of them and apply it to themselves. Less is known regarding the extent to which peers influence each other's level of self concept and identity. In another article, it focused on identity uncertainty. So, adolescents may try on different identities, just as I stated earlier, until they find one that they are comfortable with. Researchers chose to explore the commonality of adolescents being uncertain by performing a longitudinal study in 2016. The results came back and confirmed that Erikson's notion that experiencing daily identity uncertainty is common during adolescence. It is very rare, like I said, that adolescents have fully achieved uh, a set identity during their teenage years. Identity is something that goes on into young adulthood and sometimes even into adulthood because we are constantly changing and learning more about ourselves as we get older. Quality of life. So there are four identity statuses. There's diffused, foreclosed, moratorium, and achieved. So in 2016, a research study concluded that different patterns of identity processes in adolescence go along with different levels of quality of life. And that is important to note because we want to make sure that we have the best quality of life. And in order to get that, that means we are going to have to encourage the identity formation to be more achieved. So, diffused identity is what was found to be linked to the lowest level of subjective quality of life, whereas the foreclosed identity was the highest. And just to go into a little bit more detail, I did want to go over the 4 definitions of identity. So, identity is diffused when the individual neither explores nor is engaged in goal, value, directed activities in their life. Identity foreclosure, in turn, is a status of identity characterized by commitment without exploration of alternatives, in contrast to moratorium, which involves exploration without commitment. And finally, achieved identity is a status of identity typical of the individual who has experienced a crisis, undergone identity exploration, and decided on their commitment. So they have actually explored a variety of identities and they know through experience what identity they would like to take on and is committed to it because they've seen a variety. Moving on, identity predictors. So, there are different predictors of the student's search for identity and how they affect their psychosocial development. In 2015, a research was done and it was found that the identity predictors were individual expression, autonomy, and social pressure. Family, friends, religion, school, and experiences are the factors that affect the formation of identity. Other factors can also include the physical traits and gender, and that's a big one, especially in today's society, being that people are more fluid in their gender and more open to exploring other alternatives between the 2 main ones that we know. Which leads me to the next research, gender and sexual identity. As part of this process, adolescents form many identities, including sexual orientation identity, and seek to integrate their multiple identities into their overall sense of self. Adolescents' sexual orientation and gender identity are complex, very complex actually. To support this idea, a study from 2016 explored adolescents' gender identity and found that 1/3 of the sample reported a gender identity that was not congruent with their sex assigned at birth. Individuals with non congruent gender identities were more likely to identify with a sexual orientation that other than lesbian, gay, or bisexual, along with many, many other findings. The article was actually very informative. But in conclusion, forming an identity at this stage can be very difficult for some. There is a lot to take in. It can be very scary for our teenagers at this point, and they have to go through trial and error. There are numerous factors that can be considered due to its complexity, but the biological, cognitive, and social changes that occur in adolescence stimulate young people to think about themselves, to reflect on the kind of people they want to become, and find a place in society. Ultimately, for the most part, they will be able to do that. And so it is all about the experiences that they are given and the circumstances that they are presented throughout life. Here are my references that I used for this week, and I would like to thank you all for watching, and I hope that you learned something from my presentation.